Okay, it's Mike Messier. I want to speak on this Sami Callihan bat situation, but putting it in some historical perspective. Historical perspective for other wrestling fans that might have an interest in this. And so just trying to take some emotion out of it, some of the bass out of my tone. I've been very critical of Sami Callihan and his bat swinging, and I made kind of a reference to what he should do with himself. But I want to put this whole thing in perspective a little bit. Sami actually, in tit for tat, he referenced Shane Douglas breaking Pitbull, I believe, 1's neck. I always get Pitbull 1 and 2 mixed up. I'm sorry to the Pitbull fans. But Gary Wolf, broke his neck and so forth. And yeah, he made a good point, and who's to say where the line is? I guess in that situation, going back, I think to 1996, when Shane Douglas did in fact use kind of an open, like a twisting arm DDT variation, and it did result in a broken neck for Gary Wolf, which apparently was a real injury. I've heard Raven discuss it, and Gary didn't know it was a real neck injury until he went to Raven's chiropractor. Raven tells a very interesting story. And the chiropractor was going to work on his neck and then said, oh my God, I think I've never done this before, but I'm going to have your neck x-rayed to Gary Wolf. And this is according to Raven. So if you look up that story somehow, it's on one of those shoot interviews with Raven talking about Gary's neck injury. And look, I don't know these guys personally, Gary Wolf at least. And so who knows what happened. I know that that angle at the time, Shane Douglas did use that neck injury to promote the franchise character. And a great quote he had was, "I showed you the face of hardcore and you turned away in disgust." So Sami Callihan raising that point as a tit for tat on Shane Douglas, okay. And then also raising, I think Sami or his defenders did, the Skywalker's Starrcade 86 match where Jim Cornette fell off the scaffold or was pushed off by the Rock and Roll Express. I'm sorry, not even the Rock and Rolls, the Road Warriors at 86. And they did the same match a year later. And so, I guess what the difference is to me is the audience was bigger. Impact has a crap audience, and maybe this is their way of trying to incite an audience for this stuff. Like, hey, we're really going to injure guys, so let's watch. And B, so does that make a difference if there's a bigger audience to justify it? Well, maybe that's faulty logic on my point. But B, more so the point is, especially with the Shane Douglas, Gary Wolf injury incident, it was a wrestling maneuver that went astray. That was, either dealt wrong, taken wrong, or some combination therein. Whereas, and the scaffold match, I'll give him credit. He made a solid argument that why is Cornette, jumping off scaffold and blowing out his knees as a manager. And obviously, Big Bubba Rogers, who we all know later on as the Big Boss Man, was supposedly supposed to catch Cornette and didn't do that. But basically the difference would be neither of those situations involved a baseball bat. Now, in the case of the scaffold match, yeah, I'll give Callihan credit. He points out something that did you really need a scaffold match, especially when you had Road Warrior Hawk up there with a broken leg? Well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know what to tell you. But a baseball fucking bat swung down through a chair that was poorly positioned on a guy's fucking face. And I'm trying to think, what was the intent? Was the bat supposed to hit the chair, which was supposed to hit Eddie Edwards' face? Because that doesn't seem very logical. Oh, I'm going to take this bat, hit a chair, it's going to hit you in the face and hurt you. Either A, it's still going to make a lot of contact, or how is Eddie supposed to block that, or how is that supposed to be received? It just doesn't seem like a very thought out spot in my book. And look, I'm not a fucking expert on any of this stuff, but I have been watching for quite some time. And I have had a few matches, not many, and not many good matches, but I had a couple of good matches. The next thing is that going to the historical perspective side, the other situation with a baseball bat, you'd have to go back to 1986, okay? October of 86. I believe it was the same week, believe it or not, that Magnum TA had his horrible Porsche accident and basically ended Magnum's career. I want to say, I could be wrong, but I think it was the same episode of Worldwide Wrestling, NWA, where they showed this really bootleg, kind of horrific footage of the Four Horsemen. It was just 3 of them. I think it was just, I want to say Ole, Arn, Tully, and JJ. So they left Flair out of it, which was kind of interesting because they didn't make the world champion do the dirty work. But I want to say it might have just been Ole and Arn and JJ. I don't even remember if Tully was there. But they attacked Dusty Rhodes. They like followed him. It was a very creepy footage. So if you can find this footage somewhere, it's the Andersons, I think, and JJ. I can't remember if Tully was there. I want to say that he wasn't. And it was definitely Ole. I'm pretty damn sure it was Ole and Arn and JJ, and just the 3 of them following Dusty in a fucking, like the streets of Greensboro or the streets of Charlotte. And they beat him up, and they like fucking tie his arm extended. And you can hear, I believe it's Dusty saying, make it good, make it good. And they fucking whack his arm with a baseball bat. And it's like, is Dusty directing them to hurt his own arm, saying, if you're going to bash my arm, you assholes, make it good, make it good. Because it sounds like Dusty's the one that's telling them to make it good. It was a very haunting, scary fucking clip. So if you ever see that, so yeah, that might be taking it too far too. I mean, are you in business here to attack a guy with a baseball bat? Other things, with baseball bats, the Sting, NWO, they all seem to have baseball bats at various times. I know Sting had that black bat, and it always seemed like, for whatever reason, wrestling was so popular, the NWO and Sting was so over that we all kind of forgave the fact that no one just took a baseball bat and conked someone in the head with it. Like, they'd always jab you in the midsection or whack you on the back. But, like, there was this code of conduct that, okay, you've got a bat, which most of us assume was some type of a thin aluminum or a gimmicked bat, not a real bat that's going to potentially kill somebody. But maybe they were real bats. I don't know. But it always seemed like they never actually hit someone in the head with it. They always hit a guy in the thing typically that Sting would do would be like someone would go up top for an axe handle smash on him, and then Sting would kind of crouch and jab him in the stomach with the bat. And it never seemed like he ever actually conked someone in the skull with it, but I could be forgetting something. Trying to think of ECW stuff. I mean, the thing with Raven and Sandman, the crucifixion angle that was not allowed to be aired, and it's kind of resurfaced in the last 10 years or so on, people are looking at me because I'm doing these videos, just so you know. The Raven and stuff like that, crucifying, the Sandman, the famous story about that. Look into your ECW chronology DVD, fans, if you don't know this story. It's a really interesting story about how they had Kurt Angle at the ECW arena, I believe in 1996, shortly after Angle won the Olympics. They introduced Kurt Angle to the crowd, and then later on the show, the Raven crucified fucking Sandman, and Kurt Angle, who's a Christian, was very upset, and he was pissed off at Paul Heyman. He didn't want Heyman to release footage of him being there. Raven came out and offered a half-assed apology. That's a great story. So yeah, look, things have gone on in pro wrestling that have crossed the line. I mean, there was a ECW pay-per-view or a big show before they even did pay-per-view called The Night the Line Was Crossed, which I think was their 1993 Shane Douglas versus Terry Funk versus Sabu, which I think that meant some more like they crossed the line into great wrestling, okay? So, any fucking way. Maybe that was 94, not 93, whatever. I don't know what to say. All I can say is I've met Eddie Edwards just a few times, just for moments, not even like he wouldn't remember me, all right? But I've met him. He's always seemed like a nice guy, a quiet guy, outside the ring, just doing his business. And I think what people lose, path on for my book is, sure, Sami Callihan gets to go on and have a career and run around and do this again or learn from his mistakes or tweet or twat or whatever the fuck he wants to do. But Eddie Edwards is the guy who has to walk around with a fucked up eye socket for the rest of his life. And look, people say, oh, he's not that hurt. It's not that big a deal. I'm sorry to say, folks, you don't get a fucking baseball bat to your eye and get orbital damage you're never going to be the same. So I'm sorry, but if anyone ever out there has had any type of bodily injury, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this video have, either they're wanting to be wrestlers or are wrestlers or wrestling fans or athletes of some kind, probably had more injuries than I have. But the thing is, your body never is 100% after a vital injury like that. And he could get migraines, he could get headaches, he could get blurry vision. It could have a detriment to Eddie Edwards' life. And I just get a little sick of fans who just want to, accidents happen. They don't. It's carelessness. It's recklessness. It's behavior befitting of animals on the street. Not even so. Animals have more logic to them than that. So, Sami gets to go about his business and run around and claim that he's getting more money. But meanwhile, a perfectly nice fellow like Eddie Edwards is got a fucking eye injury. And Eddie Edwards, being the nice guy that he is and trying to, babyface the situation and downplay it and not be a crying cunt about it or a crying bitch. And no offense to cunts or bitches, but Eddie Edwards is not going to cry about it. But I'll do the crying for him because I'm a little disgusted. And when I say things like, what have they done to our sport or carelessness, it's not because I really feel that way. I really feel it's carelessness. I really feel like these guys who are making a good living or are trying to, and I do respect their hustle and I do respect their hard work. And, Sami Callihan, Solomon Crowe, I'm not that familiar with him, but I do respect that he's trying his best to make a living and make the best of a bad situation. So, I just think that if you're going to try to turn this into a social media propaganda campaign for yourself, Sami in this case, then you're going to take a little heat for it too from fucking assholes like myself who are going to be critical about it and say, hey, look, it really is a no-win situation. I mean, the thing to do, which is too late now, but if you look back at this Tommy Cairo, believe it or not, Tommy Dreamer Sandman eyeball cigarette incident from like 1994 in ECW, like the early onset of ECW. This Tommy Cairo, Tommy Dreamer Sandman incident, which supposedly ended in the blinding of the Sandman through a cigarette from Tommy Dreamer, and Tommy Cairo's involved somehow, and he never. I mean, we don't know what the fuck happened to Tommy Cairo, but if you look into that angle and how they played an injury off, that wasn't even a legitimate thing. That if they were to do something with this Sami Callihan Eddie Edwards thing, it might be interesting. But the whole thing that I think a lot of fans are trying to do to justify it is say, let's see what they do with this, or let's give this a shot. Accidents happen. Well, I wasn't motivated to seek out Impact Wrestling last week, and that's because Impact Wrestling, no offense, I've applied to work for them or whatever the fuck. They don't seem to give a flying cunt fuck. That's fine. But the point is, they never seem to get it right. I mean, let's be honest. Like Impact, I want to watch them. I want to like them as an alternative, but they always seem to fuck themselves. They always seem to lose their top talent. Right when they have something going with, say, Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis, they're gone. Right when they seem to have something going with Cody Rhodes, he's gone. Right when they seem to have something going with the Hardys, they're fucking gone. So they have a hard time maintaining their grasp on their talent, whether it's because the talent doesn't want to sign long-term contracts or not, I don't know. But in any fucking event, it's hard to like Anthem Wrestling or fucking Impact or Impact on Pop, whatever they fucking call it, the promotion formerly known as TNA or NWA TNA or whatever the fuck. To me, it's almost like a gone federation, like Gone Boy Gone. It's just gone. So in any fucking event, I don't think I have any big thesis or big fucking arc for this rant. It's just, yes, there have been situations that have been horribly for Sami, to give him fucking credit. He knows his wrestling history and he called them out. Shane Douglas and Jim Cornette, he called them out and said, hey, assholes, what about you breaking the pit bull's neck? What about you, Cornette, flopping off a fucking scaffold? I was surprised he didn't mention this one, but I'll mention it. And I like Cornette a lot. But what about Cornette throwing fire at Ronnie Garvin and the Road Warrior Animal at the Crockett Cup, 87? I mean, you can say, why are you playing with fire? Literally. You know what I mean? The fucking fire match in Greensboro, Kane versus The Undertaker. I mean, the WWF at the time, big time money they had. Why are they putting fire around a ring? And supposedly that was a fucking hot situation. I wasn't there for that, but Jim Ross, I believe, talks about it. It was just burning hot, and I think The Undertaker talked about it. So all these things, and honestly, to me, and I hate to bring it up, but I will bring it up. It always comes down to fucking Owen. It always comes down to Owen Hart risking, and obviously in a horrible situation that still affects everybody who watched it or has heard about it. Owen Hart dying through a stunt that was totally unnecessary. The mid-card match, the Intercontinental title match, scheduled to win the title, not having the proper stunt coordinators, and look, I've done my fair share. I'm not the expert on it, but I've done enough research on it to know, in my opinion, that Owen dying that horrible night in St. Louis in 1999 didn't need to happen, and who's to fault, who's to blame, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, but all I can say is it always comes down to that, because as wrestling fans, yeah, we want to see some violence, we want to see some blood, we want to see some action, we want to see some hardcore wrestling once in a while, but we don't want to see these guys fucking die. And, someone made a good point. I can't remember. It might have been Cornette, I think it was, who said that, a half an inch either way, Callahan's bat could legitimately fucking caved Eddie's fucking skull in. You know what I mean? Or the fucking bat could have gone into his eyeball and permanently blinded him, or whatever the fuck. And Edwards himself said he felt like when he reached his hand away. So if you're a fan out there who's fucking tweeting these images of bats, or if there's some type of merchandise that Sammy's going to try to make a fucking living off of, I mean, it would be nice if he were to donate that money to some type of charity for blind people, or charity for stupid wrestlers who can learn from his mistake. But I don't know if he's going to do that. It seems like he just wants to line his pockets. And I'm sorry, it doesn't motivate me to support Sami Callihan or to support Impact Wrestling through any of that. And someone made a good point that they said Eddie Edwards signed a 3-year deal with Impact or something, or a 3-year deal, a 1-year deal. And they said, yeah, because give the guy a big contract so he doesn't sue you. And I gave that the old thumbs up, because yes, that's pretty much it. I mean, hey, in my book, there's some fault there if they're going to allow that stuff to happen. So look, I'm not I made a video where I said some things about Sami Callihan. Obviously, I was trying to make a point that I don't condone what he did, and I don't think it's something that people should make light of. But I was trying to push that envelope a little bit and say, hey, it's not that hard, okay? I'm sorry to tell you, but as an actor myself, it's not terribly hard to play an asshole or be unlikable or be a fucking psychopath, because I can do it just as well as anybody can do it. But in my book, what's hard sometimes is to show restraint. What's hard sometimes is to show class. What's hard sometimes is to put safety first. In an ever-declining world of common sense, sometimes, discretion is the better part of valor. Common sense is the better part of valor. And I just don't see the guys in Impact Wrestling, i.e. Sami fucking Callihan, doing that. So people can fucking say, hey, Messier, go fuck yourself, whatever, and that's fine. But I'm just looking out for the betterment of the sport. Why do I do these goddamn videos? I like to hear myself talk, sure, but I also think that someone out there might be listening. The next big wrestling promoter, the next Jim Crockett Jr., the next Bill Watts, Fritz von Erich, Jim Cornette, someone of that nature who could take pro wrestling and put some class back into it. Gary Hart used to say, world-class championship wrestling was great wrestling action with a tinge of class, with a touch of class. And I think that's what's missing, okay? So you can take that, you can think about it, you can not. Maybe this is affecting with an E in a positive way someone out there who's watching this, and maybe it's not. But I hope that it is, because as a wrestling fan, I'm probably one of the last people who's willing to speak out about the perspective of a wrestling fan who's been through the fucking wars, seen the best, seen the worst, and just trying to help realign this thing. Because I think we are getting to Spot Monkey Fest. I think we are getting to You Deserve It World. We are there. And it's just a different animal. It's a different sport. But for fans who want to know what they can do, Get your fucking Jim Crockett Jr. tapes, your 1982 Don Kernoodle. If you're watching a match with Don Kernoodle, you're off to a good start. Find the road to Greensboro. There's people, if you message me privately, I'll give you the tape sources. I don't want to get them in trouble, but dig around. YouTube, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, 1982, World Class Championship Wrestling. Georgia Championship Wrestling, the late 70s into the early 80s. You can find this stuff on YouTube. Just dig around. If you're watching stuff on the network, okay, but you're probably watching a homogenized version of it. You're watching what Vince and Associates want you to see of these territories. I'll go on to another, but that's Southpaw Championship Wrestling. I can't even bear to watch it because they're mocking the territories that are better than what the WWE is now. So what the fuck? Who's the joke on? You're mocking something that's better than your current product because your current product is boring. And they have steroid-induced assholes like Brock Lesnar and so on and so forth running around with championships and beating The Miz in a minute. So there's a lot of things to be angry about as a wrestling fan. But the Sami Callihan thing, I wanted to put into historical perspective. Mike Messier, enjoy your fucking weekend. And I don't want to say peace. I want to say war. War on bad wrestling. How about that?